Okay, in this video, we are going to address our word problems like we normally do. Step 1 is we're going to underline and box the information, and in step 2, we don't have to draw it because it's already drawn, and step 3 is we're going to solve it and break up our components. So 1 says, determine the volume of the ice cream cone shown below and round to the nearest tenth. So we're going to determine the volume of the ice cream cone below and round to the nearest tenth. There's no numbers given, so we don't do any boxing. We're just underlining our key words, and so we know we're finding a volume, and we know we're going to round it to the nearest tenth. So with that said, let's write our formula. V equals big B times H, and we have our big B and our H. Remember that it takes 3 cones to fill up 1 cylinder. So since it takes 3 cones to fill up 1 cylinder, we know that we're going to need to go ahead and do our formula, which is 1/3 pi times r squared, where r is the radius, this half of this line. So notice it doesn't go all the way across. This is the radius. So we're going to plug that in for our r, 1.2 squared. Our height, right here up and down from the top and bottom of the figure, the distance between the base and the highest point on the figure, is going to be 5. So we're going to put our 5. Now we're going to bring that together. So we got 1/3 1.2 squared times 5. And that is equal to put our fraction bar, and we'll put 1/3, and then we'll put times pi times 1.2 squared times 5. Once we put that in our calculator, we're going to hit enter, and it gives us 7.53. So if we round that to the tenths place, right, we have a 3 after our 5, so that's our hundredths place. Because it's 4 or less, we let it rest. So we have 7.5. And that's inches cubed. So on number 2, it's much the same. It says Lucretia uses a small funnel as shown below to fill her salt shaker. Determine the volume of the funnel and round to the nearest tenth. So we have V equals big B times H. We need to find big B, and we need to find H. So you go ahead and try this one on your own, and then let's move to the next one. Three, the top of the stone post of an entry to an estate are the shape of a cone as shown below. Determine the volume of stone needed to make the top of the post round to the nearest tenth. So you're only going to look at what's needed to make the top of the post and round to the nearest tenth. So we're not concerned about the cylinder. We're only concerned from this base of the cone up to the top. So we got V is equal to BH. Big B, right? We have 1/3 times our radius, which our radius is from the center of the circle over to the edge. And I should be shading these in. That's my base. So that number is 1.4. So times pi times 1.4 squared. My height from the base to the highest point is 2.6 feet. And then you can work this one out the rest of the way on your own. And let's look at number 4. It says Martha bought a paperweight in the shape of a cone. The radius was 10 centimeters and the height 9 centimeters. Determine the volume and round to the nearest tenth. Alright, so this one we're going to do step 2. We're going to draw it out. And if we draw it, it says that it was a paperweight and it was a cone. So I'm imagining it's going to be sitting on the base. It says it had a radius, so there's my radius, of 10 centimeters. And it had a height, if we go from here all the way to the top, of 9 centimeters. So we got V equals big B times H. Big B is equal to 1/3 times pi times the radius, which is 10 squared. H is equal to 9, because that's my height up and down. And now I just need to bring it together. And it'll give me my final answer here, and I'll let you finish working that out. So let's take a look at the next one. A lampshade is in the shape of a cone. The diameter is 5 inches and the height is 6.5 inches. Determine the volume and round to the nearest tenth. Okay, well, that's step 1. We underline and we boxed our information. Step 2 is we're going to draw it. So the lampshade looks like a cone. The diameter, remember diameter goes all the way across, is 5 inches. So that diameter is 5 inches. And the height from the base to the top of this shape is 6.5 inches. So now we do our formula. V equals big B times H. And so we have our big B and our H. And big B is going to be 1/3 pi times the radius. Now notice this isn't the radius. It says that this is 5 all the way across. We only need half of it. So I need half of 5. So the diameter divided by 2 equals R. So I'm going to do 5 divided by 2 is equal to R. And if I do 5 divided by 2, if you need to, you're more than welcome to put that in your calculator. We could do 5 divided by 2. Put a decimal after one of the numbers so it'll give you a decimal. And it's 2.5. It's 2.5 is R. So it's going to be 1/3 times pi times my R, which is 1.5. I'm sorry, 2.5 squared. And then my height is 6.5. So now if I go ahead and put it all together, I'm going to multiply big B times H. Then I have 1/3 times pi times 2.5 squared times 6.5. And once I put that in my calculator, it'll give me the answer. And we can put that one in here. So let's see, we have fraction bar 1/3 times pi times 2.5 squared times 6.5. And it gives me 42.54. Now, if we go ahead and round this to the tens place, after the 5 is a 4. So remember, 4 or less, let it rest. So it says 42.5. So our final answer is 42.5 inches cubed. Number 6, it says a piece of candy is in the shape of a cone. The height of the candy is 2 centimeters. So the height is 2 centimeters. And the diameter is 1 centimeter. Determine the volume and round to the nearest tenth. Alright, so this one you'll need to draw the shape and then do your formula. And try this one completely on your own. Alright, in this video, we're just going to be completing the volume of these cones, of a given set of cones. So let's start with number 1. Number 1 says, there's a cone here, and it tells us to find the volume of each cone and round to the nearest tenth. So we're going to start by writing our formula. V is equal to big B times H, and big B is equal to 1/3, because it takes 3 cones to fill up one cylinder, so 1/3 times pi times r, and notice my radius, right, which is right here, is 2, so that's my r squared. My h is the height between the base and the end of the cone, so I'll shade in my base, that's my base. So height is 5, and then I'm just going to put these together. So V is equal to my B times my H. So that's going to be 1/3 pi times 2 squared times H. And if we put that in the calculator, we'd have 1/3 times pi times 2 squared times 5. And that would give us 20.9. And if you look at it, we have, after the 9 is a 4, so we don't change it, because remember, 4 or less, we let 9 stay. So we got 20.9. That's rounded to the nearest tenth, so we have 20.9 inches cubed, because it's volume. So let's go to number 2. Number 2 says we have 20 millimeters for our radius, and it's going to shade in our base. Get in the habit of doing that. So there's our base. That's how we know where we get the radius from. Do not take the height as the radius. So shade in your base, that's going to be the circle, and make sure that that's the one that you're going to be using, that value for your radius. And you have V is equal to big B times H, and your big B is going to be 1/3 times pi times the radius, which the radius right here is 20 millimeters squared, and then your height is going to be 24 millimeters. That's the distance up and down from the top to the bottom of the figure. And then we can go ahead and put it together. Big B times H, which is what we're supposed to do up here, and we're going to put it down here. So we have 1/3 pi times 20 squared times 24. And I'll let you put that one in the calculator and write your final answer. Number 3, I'm going to shade my base. That's the first thing we need to do, so we know where we're pulling our radius from. And write our formula. We got V equals big B times H. So there's my big B and there's my H. And my big B is going to be 1/3 times pi times my radius. Now in this one we have an extra step. Notice they give us a line that goes all the way across. So therefore it is the diameter rather than the radius. So I'm going to cut this in half. And if we cut 15 in half, it's the same thing as saying 15 divided by 2. And that's going to give us our radius, which is r. And if you put that in your calculator, right, you could say 15 divided by 2. Put a decimal after one of the numbers, so it'll give you a decimal. And it says it's 7.5. So this is 7.5. And that's equal to r. So we're going to plug that number in. So my r is 7.5. That's my radius squared. And then my height is the distance from top to bottom of the figure, and it says it's 10 inches. So that's 10. So then we have V is equal to 1/3 times pi times 7.5 squared times 10. And that's my B times my H. And write your final answer. I'll let you work that one out. So on number 4, we have a base that's flipped up, so we're going to shade it in. And if you notice on this one, it's just giving us the radius. We don't have to divide this one because it's only half. We just want half of it, and it gives us half, so that makes it easier. So we're going to do V is equal to big B times H. My big B is equal to, and my H is equal to, and let's go and do big B first. Okay, so I got 1/3 times pi times my radius, which is 7.4, squared times H, which is 9.9. And so now I'm going to put this together. So V is equal to big B times h. And my big B is 1/3 pi times 7.4 squared times my height, which is 9.9. And I'll let you finish this one off as well. Number 5, we have V is equal to big B times H. So we're going to be looking for big B and H. And if you notice on this one, if I shade my base, I'm pulling my number from down here, and notice this line goes all the way across. So once again, it is the diameter. So we need half of the diameter, right? Because the diameter divided by 2 equals the radius. So my diameter is 8. So that's like saying 8 divided by 2 is equal to my radius, which is 4. So now we can plug it in. So we have 1/3 times pi times 4 squared, and then we need our height, which is the distance between the top and bottom of the figure, and that's 14. And I will let you go ahead and put this one together and solve the rest of it. And I want to see all your work, so be sure that you're showing all of your work. So let's look at number 6. Number 6, we have V is equal to big B times H. So we're going to look for big B, and then we're going to look for H. And if we shade this in, we have the diameter. It goes all the way across. So in this one, we're going to need to do that extra step, right? The diameter divided by 2 is R. So our diameter is 20. So we got 20 divided by 2, and it's going to give us our R. And then we need to plug it in for our big B. And then we need to find H and put it together and solve it. So I'm going to leave that up to you to go ahead and complete that. Number 7, we also have our V is equal to big B times H. Notice once again, if we look down here, does it give us half of it, or does it give us the whole thing? And it gives us the whole thing. So once again, we're going to need to divide the diameter by 2. That's going to give us R. So you'll need to do that first. So you need to divide this diameter in half, or divide this number by 2. Once you get your radius, then plug it in and solve for, and put it in for big B. Put in your number for H, which your height is the distance from top to bottom, so that's 24. And then you're going to multiply those two numbers together. You'll rewrite them right here showing they're being multiplied together. Put it in your calculator and then solve for your final answer. Let's look at number 8. We have the same thing. V is equal to big B times H. We're going to find big B, then we're going to find H. Shade in your base. And then you need to think about, did they give me half of this from the center to the edge, or they give me the whole thing? And if they give you the whole thing, you know that you'll need to divide it and determine what V is. And I'll let you work this one all the way out by yourself. You'll be multiplying the big B times the H, and then give me your final answer. Be sure to show all your work. So let's look at number 9. So number 9 says we have a height underlined of 26.8 centimeters box, and a radius underlined of 12 centimeters box. So I want you to actually draw this out and label it and then solve it. So I'm going to do it over here right beside it, and then you can do the rest of these somewhere else on this page. You got room all around here you can use. So let's see, I'm going to draw my cone, and it says that the height is 26.8 centimeters. So from the base up, and I'm going to draw that here, I'm going to say this is 26.8 centimeters up and down. It says my radius, so that's from the center over to one edge, is going to be 12 centimeters. Well, that makes it easy because they gave us just half of it. We don't have to do any dividing or anything. So we can go, okay, well, V is equal to big B times H. Big B equals, and H equals, and my big B is going to be 1/3 pi times my radius, which is 12 squared, and my height is 26.8. So if I were to put that together, then I got V is equal to 1/3 pi times 12 squared times my height of 26.8. And now I've multiplied these two together, And I just need to put that in my calculator to get my final answer. And my final answer on this one will be, I'll use my fraction bar and put my 1/3 times pi times 12 squared times 26.8. See, now that I got that all in, hit enter, and it gives me 4,041.3, because remember that 4, if it's 4 or less, let it rest. So our tens place, we're just going to let it rest, and it's in centimeters cubed. And that is our final answer for that one. So now let's go ahead and look at the next one. 10, underline height, box are 34 feet, underline diameter, box are 9.8 feet. So we need to draw another one of these to represent those values. So our height up and down is going to be 34 feet. Our diameter goes all the way across, and it's going to be 9.8 feet. 9.8. So now what we want to do, we're going to have to divide our diameter by 2, and that'll give us our radius. So we're going to have 9.8 divided by 2 is equal to, and let's just take a look at it, 9.8 divided by 2 is equal to 4.9. So we know our radius is going to be 4.9. I'm going to write it down here. 4.9 is R. So we can go ahead and do V equals big B times H. Big B equals and H equals. So my big B is going to be 1/3 times pi times my radius of 4.9 squared times my H, which is 34. So if we were to put that all together, and I'm just going to move this up a little bit because I'm just going to continue to write downward, then what I would have is, okay, multiply big B times H. So V would be equal to 1/3 times pi times 4.9 squared times 34. And then you go ahead and write the final answer once you work it out. And then I want you to try 11 to 12 completely on your own.